The moment he leaned into the microphone and said it, the entire courtroom stopped breathing. "Listen, you old fool. You don't talk to me like that." The word fool hung in the air like a slap. The clerk froze. An officer's hand moved, almost instinctively, closer to his holster. A woman in the back row covered her mouth. Only one man didn't flinch. Judge Frank Caprio. He didn't bang the gavel. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at the defendant, a rich, perfectly groomed 32-year-old in a tailored navy suit, gold watch, diamond cufflinks, a smirk that had gotten him out of trouble more times than he could count. On the docket, his name was simple: State of Rhode Island versus Dante Marino. On the streets, they called him something else. The quiet king of the waterfront, the man whose parties never ended, the businessman whose money never ran out, even when other people's lives did. This wasn't supposed to be a drug case. Not on paper. Officially, he was here for reckless driving, failure to stop, obstructing an officer. Just another early morning hearing. But everyone in that room knew the overdose spikes in his neighborhood, the unmarked cars that followed him for months, the sealed indictments waiting in some federal drawer. And now, in a small municipal courtroom, with cameras rolling and people scrolling, the mask finally slipped. Dante leaned back, folding his arms, eyes locked on the judge like this was just another negotiation. "You think you scare me?" he added, voice dripping with contempt. "You have no idea who I am." There were 100 ways Judge Caprio could have answered. He chose silence. Long, heavy, purposeful silence. He let the words echo, bounce off the marble, sink into the wood, and land right back where they came from. Then he spoke, almost gently. "Mr. Marino, you just made the most expensive sentence of your life." The gallery shifted. People exchanged glances. The camera light blinked red. Because this wasn't just about a traffic ticket anymore. It was about what happens when a man who thinks he owns the city finally meets the one room he can't buy. And what you're about to see is how a single insult-told fool turned into something Dante never expected. Jail, justice, and a decade-long transformation no one saw coming. If stories like this remind you why justice matters, tap subscribe so you never miss the truth behind these courtroom moments. The doors to the courtroom had opened 20 minutes earlier. A slow, weighted creak, the kind you hear 1,000 times and never stop noticing. People shuffled in. A young mother with a stroller, parking it in the back. A delivery driver still in his uniform, clutching a ticket like it was a final exam. A high school kid, hoodie up, staring at the floor. Then Dante arrived. He didn't walk in like a defendant. He walked in like a man inspecting property. 2 men in suits came with him, private security, not court officers. They scanned the room, then took seats 2 rows behind him, like a living reminder. This man has money. This man has power. He wore no handcuffs, no shackles, just that deep blue suit, tailored so sharp it could cut. The clerk raised a stack of files, voice clear and practiced. "Court is now in session." The Honorable Judge Frank Caprio presiding. The side door opened. Judge Caprio walked in slowly, robe brushing the floor, every step in old, steady rhythm. The room rose. "Good morning, everyone," he said, as he always did. "We're here to try to do justice, and maybe a little mercy, if it's deserved." He smiled softly at the room. Then he looked down at the docket. First case. The clerk began calling names. One by one, people approached, told their stories, held their breath, left lighter or heavier. Finally, case number 4719, State of Rhode Island versus Dante Marino. Dante didn't stand right away. He glanced at his watch, adjusted a cufflink, then rose, slow enough to show that he was doing it on his own time. Not the court's. He stepped up to the podium, resting both hands on it with deliberate casualness. Judge Caprio glanced at the file, then back at Dante. "Good morning, sir. State your name for the record." Dante leaned into the mic just a little. "Dante Marino." If confidence had a sound, it was in those 2 words. Judge Caprio nodded. "Mr. Marino, you're here on multiple charges. Let's start with the reckless driving and failure to stop." He lifted the first citation. "On June 3rd, at approximately 2:14 a.m., you were observed operating a black Maserati at a high rate of speed, failing to stop at a red light, nearly colliding with a pedestrian." Dante's jaw flexed. He didn't look nervous. He looked annoyed. "Yeah," he said, "we'll talk about that. But your officer left a few details out." The judge tilted his head slightly. "We'll get there." He turned to the monitor on his right. "Officer, let's see the body cam footage." The lights dimmed just a fraction as the screen came alive. TIMESTMP 2 hours 14 minutes and 07 seconds AM body cam video, patrol unit. to 3. Rain, headlights, the chaos of wet city streets at night. A black Maserati slices through the frame, engine roaring, barely tapping the brakes as it tears through a red light. A blur of movement, someone on the crosswalk jerks back, stumbling, arms flailing. The officer's voice crackles through the speakers. Dispatch. This is Unit 23, possible 10 to 50 avoided. Initiating stop on a black Maserati plate, the siren screams to life. Back in the courtroom, no one moves. On the screen, the Maserati finally pulls over. The body cam swings as the officer approaches. You can hear the officer's breathing, the rain hitting his jacket, the low hum of the engine. He reaches the driver's side window. Good evening, sir. License and registration. Glass rolls down. Dante's voice comes through. Command IC. Do you have any idea who you just pulled over? He doesn't ask. He warns. Pattern interrupt. The judge pauses the footage. Mr. Marino, he says, is that your voice? Dante shrugs. Looks like me. Sounds like me. A few chuckles slip out from the gallery. He lets them. Judge Caprio doesn't smile. Cameras don't take sides, he says quietly. They take truth. He presses play. Timestamp. 2 hours 14 minutes and 48 seconds AM body cam audio excerpt. Officer. I'm just asking for your license and registration. Sir. Dante. No, you're not just asking. You're trying to make a name for yourself. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk back to your car, pretend this didn't happen, and I'm going to forget your face. Officer, sir, I need your license now. Dante, you're making a mistake. I could buy this whole block, including your pension. His hand reaches out of the window, waving something. The video pauses on a stack of folded bills. Not a huge stack, but enough. Pattern interrupt. 3 contradictions exposed. Narrator voice cuts in, not as a character, but as that voice in the viewer's head. He calls it a misunderstanding, but he waves cash at a cop. He says he didn't see the light, but the footage shows him speeding up. He claims he never hurts anyone, while a pedestrian dives out of his way. Back in the courtroom, everyone is watching the same moment, but they're not all seeing the same thing. Some see privilege, some see danger, some see themselves one bad night away from standing at that podium. Judge Caprio presses his fingertips together and looks at Dante. Mr. Marino, do you still believe this was just a minor traffic stop? Dante leans toward the mic, that smirk returning. I believe this is a waste of my time. Judge, let's just pay the fine and move on. The room shifts again. This is the moment Dante could have taken a small hit and walked out. Instead, he threw a match on gasoline. Judge Caprio's eyes don't leave his. Unfortunately for you, he says. Time is exactly what we're talking about. If you believe accountability should transform people, not just punish them, hit subscribe so more viewers see stories where justice becomes change. The prosecutor steps forward. Your Honor, with the court's permission, the state would like to introduce additional materials connected to this incident. This is where everything turns. It stops being about a red light and becomes about a life pattern. On the screen, a digital ledger appears. Rows and rows of transactions. Your Honor, the prosecutor says. This is a timeline of Mr. Marino's vehicle movements and financial activities over the last 6 months, obtained through court order from his bank and GPS records connected to ongoing investigations. Dante's jaw tightens. His lawyer leans in, whispering hurriedly. But the damage is done. The word ongoing is now hanging in the air. Let's focus on the night of the incident. The prosecutor zooms in. Timeline ledger displayed on the monitor. June 2nd, 11:07 p.m. Arrival at Waterfront Warehouse. June 3rd, 12:41 a.m. Large cash deposit flagged at local bank. June 3rd to 14 a.m. High-speed incident at red light. June 3rd to 17 a.m. Traffic stop. June 3rd to 26 a.m. Custody entry. Mr. Marino temporarily detained. Then released pending summons. The judge's face stays neutral, but his eyes sharpen. Mr. Marino, where were you coming from that night? Dante shrugs. From a business meeting. What kind of business? The successful kind, Dante says. Is that a crime now? A murmur runs through the room. One of the officers near the back clenches his jaw, staring at the floor to keep himself contained. There's a pause, then the gallery door opens quietly. A woman in her 40s steps in, clutching a folded photograph. She sits down slowly, like each step costs her something. The camera finds her. The audience doesn't know who she is yet. Judge Caprio does. He glances up, recognizing her. Her name is Maria Santos. Her son didn't make it to 20. Overdose. 2 months before this hearing. The substance. Same product that had been traced, again and again, back to the network everyone whispered belonged to Dante Marino. On paper, this hearing is still just about traffic. In reality, the room is crowded with ghosts. Judge Caprio takes a breath. This is a municipal court, he says calmly. We are not trying you today for allegations that are being handled elsewhere. But your behavior on this night is connected to who you are every night. And that matters. Dante laughs once, low and disbelieving. With all due respect, Judge, he pauses. Then makes the mistake that will follow him for 10 years. Actually, scratch that. No respect. You're just an old fool in a robe trying to lecture me about life. Silence. No shuffling. No coughing. Even the air conditioner sounds louder. An officer takes a half step forward. Dante's own security shift in their seats. The insult lands in slow motion, traveling across decades of service, thousands of cases, hundreds of second chances. Judge Caprio doesn't jerk, doesn't snap. He simply closes the file in front of him and changes lanes. Mr. Marino, he says quietly, you just moved this hearing into entirely new territory. He looks to the prosecutor. Counselor, approach. They speak in low tones, legal phrases, contempt of court, pattern of behavior, bail reconsideration. The camera doesn't catch every word. It doesn't have to. What matters is what happens next. The judge looks back at Dante. You've insulted the court. You've attempted to bribe an officer. You've shown reckless disregard for human life. And you stand here amused. He leans forward slightly. So let me tell you, from this old fool to a young man who thinks he's untouchable, what's going to happen? The room leans in. First, he says, I am finding you in direct criminal contempt of court for your conduct and your language. Dante opens his mouth to protest. The judge raises a hand, not loud, but absolute. Second, I am revoking your bail conditions on this matter. You will be remanded into custody pending further proceedings connected to ongoing investigations. That decision is within my discretion, and I am exercising it. He pauses. And third, I am going to give you something you probably haven't had in a very long time. Dante scoffs. Let me guess. A sermon? A mirror, Judge Caprio says. He turns to the officers. Take him into custody. The sound of metal echoes through the room as the handcuffs click shut. For the first time, Dante's smirk cracks. This is a joke, he spits. You can't do this. Do you know how many people? Mr. Marino, the judge says, voice suddenly full and commanding. Everyone in this room has a story. Some of them made terrible mistakes. Most of them don't have your money. But they show up with respect. You came with arrogance. He gestures to the gallery. You thought this room would bend to your status. But in here, we don't measure people by what's in their bank accounts. We measure them by their character. He lets that sit. You're going to jail today, but that's not the end of your sentence. Not if I have anything to say about it. The officers lead Dante away. For the first time, he looks back, not at the judge, at the woman in the back row. Maria is staring at him, eyes red, knuckles white around the photo of her son. For a flicker of a second, their eyes meet. And for the first time, the king of the waterfront looks small. 3 weeks later, the camera doesn't show the inside of the jail. You hear it instead. The echo of steel doors, the shuffle of shoes on concrete, the buzz of fluorescent lights that never quite turn off. Dante sits across from a public speaking coach and a court-appointed counselor in a small, windowless room. He's not wearing a navy suit anymore, just standard issue orange. He's angry, humiliated, but under all of that, something else is growing. Fear. The counselor sets down a folder. Mr. Marino, she says, Judge Caprio issued a supplemental order after your remand. She slides the paper over. This is unusual, she admits, but legal. He coordinated with the prosecutors on your other cases. If you're convicted, even if you take a plea, you won't just serve time. You'll also be required to participate in a restorative justice program. Dante laughs bitterly. Restorative what? Listen, she says. If you're going to survive this next chapter, you need to understand what he's doing. He's not just punishing you. He's forcing you to confront the wreckage your choices left behind. She opens the folder. Inside are photos. Not of him. Not of cars. Not of cash. Faces. Teens. Adults. Parents. Lost eyes. Old school pictures. Overdose victims linked to the shipments his network was suspected of moving. No names. Just ages. They're going to ask you, she says quietly, to stand in front of young people one day if you get that far and explain how you became the man who helped put these faces in the ground. He pushes the folder away. I'm not a murderer, he snaps. She doesn't argue. She simply says, then start acting like someone who doesn't want to be one. 6 months later, the criminal proceedings escalate. Deals are negotiated. Lawyers come and go. Dante pleads guilty to a series of charges, some reduced, some not. The final sentencing hearing is packed. The same courtroom. The same judge. This time, there is no navy suit. Just a man who has been in a cell long enough for his hair to grow out and his weight to drop. He stands at the podium, hands clasped in front of him. No jewelry, no entourage. Only a stack of letters in front of him, some written by him, some written about him. Judge Caprio reviews the file. Mr. Marino, the charges before me, combined with the agreements made in other courts, could very well keep you in prison for most of your productive years. He looks up. I'm going to impose a sentence that reflects the seriousness of your crimes, but I'm also going to attach a responsibility you can never buy your way out of. He reads out the term. A substantial prison sentence. No suspended time. No walkaway. Then he adds, upon completion of your custodial sentence, as a condition of your supervised release, you will be required to. He doesn't list them like a grocery item. He describes them. You will stand in front of high school gyms and community centers at least 4 times a year and tell young people the truth about what this business really cost you and them. You will fund, from assets lawfully seized from your operations, a scholarship program in the names of overdose victims who can be identified and whose families consent, and you will, once a year, stand in this courtroom or one like it, in whatever city you're allowed to live in, and report publicly on what you have done to repair what you helped destroy. Dante blinks. This is, for how long? He asks, voice unsteady. For as long as you're under supervision, the judge says, and for as long as you have breath. I hope your conscience continues the work after the law is finished with you. He looks at him one last time. You called me an old fool once. Maybe I am old, but I am not a fool. And I will not let you walk away from this as if it were just another bad investment. He leans back, sentence imposed. The gavel falls. 1 year later, a grainy prison auditorium, plastic chairs, a makeshift podium. In front of it, about 50 men in various shades of beige and gray sit waiting. Dante stands at the podium, shoulders tight. He's holding a sheet of paper, his first prepared talk. He clears his throat. I used to think money made me untouchable, he begins. He glances up at the corrections officer filming the session for court records. He sees the red recording light. He remembers another camera, another red light. A black Maserati, an insult. I was wrong, he says. He tells a sanitized version of his story. It's still defensive, still full of excuses, but a crack has opened. One man in the front row nods, slowly. Another stares at the floor, arms folded, fighting his own battles. The counselor watches from the back. It's not redemption yet, but it's something, a start. 3 years later, a school gym in a rougher part of town. Banners for sports teams hang from the rafters. The bleachers creak as students file in, phones in hand, half interested, half bored. They think they're about to hear another lecture about drugs from another adult who doesn't get it. Then Dante walks in. He's thinner, older. A visible scar runs along his jawline from something that happened inside fight, dead, lesson. He steps to the mic. He doesn't have notes this time. 3 years ago, he says, I called a judge an old fool because he dared to tell me I wasn't better than anyone else in his courtroom. There's a ripple of interest. This is not how school assemblies usually start. I thought money was power. I thought fear was respect. I thought consequences were for people who couldn't afford good lawyers. He glances at the first row kids with the same brand of sneakers he used to wear, the same mask of indifference he wore at their age. I was wrong, he says. And this time, he means it. He tells them about the Maserati, the red light, the handcuffs, the cell. He doesn't glamorize the drug trade. He strips it of its shine and glamour and leaves it smelling like what it really is: loss, fear, paranoia, grief. He finished with a line he never imagined saying. If you think you're too smart to end up where I did, that's exactly how I thought. Right up until the bars closed in front of me. Afterwards, a kid hangs back, waiting until his friends leave. Why, older brother, he's kinda involved. The kid mutters. Dante doesn't preach. He just says, give him my letter. He hands over a piece of paper with a prison mailing address on it. Tell him to write me before the cops do. 10 years later, the camera returns to where it all began. The courtroom. Judge Caprio walks in slower now. The robe sits a little looser on older shoulders. The clerk's voice sounds the same, but time has moved on. He hears whispers that he might retire soon. He opens the docket. Next case, the clerk says, is a progress report hearing required under prior sentencing. State of Rhode Island versus Dante Marino. There's a shift in the room. Dante walks in. No handcuffs. He wears a simple gray suit this time. Off the rack, modest. The gold watch is gone. The swagger is gone. What remains is a man who has carried a decade of consequences and work on his back. He steps to the podium. Good morning, Your Honor, he says. His voice is quieter, but steadier. Good morning, Mr. Marino, the judge replies. I have here. The judge continues, lifting a folder, reports of your conduct since your release. They include verification of speaking engagements, scholarship distributions, and letters from families you've met through the restorative program. He glances at one page. There is also a letter from a woman named Maria Santos. Dante swallows. Maria stands slowly in the second row. She's older, more lines on her face, but her eyes are clearer. Ms. Santos, the judge asks, would you like to address the court? She steps forward, hands clasped. She holds the same photograph she held 10 years earlier. Her son's face, eternally young. She looks at Dante. 10 years ago, she says, I hated you. No sugarcoating. You were a symbol of everything that took my boy from me. The streets, the money, the poison. She takes a breath. Then, some years later, I sat in the back of a school gym and watched you talk to kids who reminded me of him. I listened to you admit what you did, not just to the law, but to us, to the families. She lifts a piece of paper. You wrote me this letter, she says. You didn't ask for forgiveness. You didn't try to explain it away. You just said you were sorry, and that you would spend the rest of your life trying to keep other mothers from feeling what I feel. Her voice trembles. I don't know if I forgive you, she admits, and the honesty hits harder than any polished speech, but I believe you. And I believe what Judge Caprio did to you made a difference. She turns to the judge. So I'm here to say, I don't want to see him go back to prison. I want to see him finish what you started. The room is dead silent. Judge Caprio looks at Dante. Double quotes Mr. Marino, he says. You once told me I had no idea who you were. That may have been true then. But 10 years later, I think I've seen enough to make a different judgment. He closes the folder. When I sentenced you, I told you I was giving you a mirror. Have you looked into it? Dante nods, eyes wet. Every day, he says. And I don't like what I see. But I don't run from it anymore. The judge considers him for a long moment. You cannot bring back the lives lost, he says. You cannot erase the harm. But you have done something very few people in your position ever do. He leans forward. You. Let the weight of your actions change you. He signs the final paper. Your supervised conditions are formally concluded. The law's grip on you loosens today. But understand this, Mr. Marino. Justice is not a set of dates on a calendar. It's a way of living with what you've done. He pauses. And as for that insult, the old fool comment. The room tenses, then softens as he smiles just a little. Well, he says, the old part is still true. The gallery laughs gently. As for fool, I'll let history decide. He lifts the gavel one more time. Case closed. The gavel falls. Dante doesn't cheer. He doesn't shout. He just turns, sees Maria, and mouths two words that never crossed his lips 10 years ago. Thank you. She nods once. Not a full forgiveness, but a fragile truce with the past. If you believe justice must stay fair, fearless, and human like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more courtroom stories that reveal the truth. And tell me in the comments, do you think what happened to Dante Marino was right or not? Your opinion matters, because at the end of the day, here's the truth this story leaves behind. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned.